I stole my own Reddit account. Now I know that sounds weird, but I'm gonna show you. In fact, in this video, I'm gonna show you how hackers and threat actors can practically steal and take over any account on any website on the internet. But I'm gonna do this in a safe, controlled demo environment, so I'll be hacking myself. First, let me show you my Reddit account. Anytime I'm here on the Windows desktop, that is me acting as the victim, the one getting hacked. Now I'm using Firefox, and I'll open that up to log in to my Reddit account. This is all for our learning, so I am going to be working with a demo account, but let me go ahead and log in. Now my username here is LeetHackSor1337, and I even have a super strong password that's over 128 characters. It's all super secure, randomly generated, set up with my password manager. I can go ahead and log in, and it's set up with two-factor authentication, so I will need to get a 6-digit code from my authenticator. Hey, I'm using Duo. You can take a look. There is the code that I'll need to enter. Should be 596300. And with that, we can go ahead and now log in. Perfect. We are logged in as LeetHackSor1337. So my account should be pretty secure, right? Even if I go into the settings, we can see, hey, two-factor authentication is enabled. But there's this threat in the whole cybersecurity landscape called session hijacking. It's a full account takeover, not based off of a username, email address, password, or multi-factor authentication or anything. It's relying on the cookies that are used to communicate with the website that you are logged in and you are who you say you are. The thing about session hijacking is that it can lead to these full account takeovers, data breaches, business email compromise, financial loss, and it is obnoxiously easy to do. So let me show you what these cookies really look like when you are authenticated to a website, because there are a whole lot of different utilities, tools, or browser extensions that actually let you view, see, or even export these cookies. This is one resource that I've seen on GitHub, and they do actually have the add-on or extension available for Firefox or Chrome. I'm currently using Firefox, so let me go add this to Firefox, and that should be pretty easy. Good by me, we can add that. Back over in Reddit, I can go ahead and now use that export cookies extension from the extension menu. Hey, let me see if I can open that up, and I'll export cookies for reddit.com. Just as an example here, we can go put this file that it exported on our desktop, and with that, let me go open it up. Now I know that this might look like a whole lot of nonsense because a lot of these cookie values are oftentimes encoded or represented in a different way to work with and handle how the web server on the website backend really handles and understands specific keys like, CSRF token, maybe token v2, session values, etc., all for a given domain and other flags like HTTP only, secure, same site, blah, blah, blah. And even oftentimes with an expiration timestamp. Like our token v2 down below or our Reddit session. Let me see what this is considering a Unix timestamp. I can use some online timestamp converter, and if I paste in that value we saw from the cookies, we could see that this is actually relative to 6 months from now, that cookie will expire. But while cookies are active, these are the keys to the kingdom and really how you can authenticate or be authenticated to an account on any website. And it's worth noting that cookies can be represented in different formats. You might be used to seeing them in JSON or JSON, that JavaScript object notation, with lots of curly braces and colons and values with indentation and stuff. But what we're seeing here in this text file, in this representation that came from our export cookies browser extension, it returned and is displaying this all out in that Netscape format. Now this Netscape format is usually the same one that's used by info stealer malware. So now that all this context is out of the way, we've got our Reddit account up in action, you know that that is secure with a strong, complex password, and multi-factor authentication. But let's get out of our Windows victim perspective and switch our perspective to put our hacker hat on and act as the adversary. So I will log in to my Kali Linux virtual machine to get that cool dragon wallpaper and really look like I'm a real hacker. I'm going to open up a terminal with Control-Alt-T on my keyboard, F11 to full screen, and I will zoom in a bit so this text is easier to read for you. And I'm going to change directory into a Reddit hack folder that I've prepared. Now with that, I actually just have a zip archive here that includes the logs from InfoStealer malware. And I mentioned this just a moment ago because InfoStealer malware really enables session hijacking, account takeover, business email compromise, all this, all from InfoStealer malware, or a type of virus that runs on your computer. And when it does, it collects as much data as possible. Things like passwords or credentials or autofill information whenever you click that Remember Me checkbox as you sign into a website, or things that you've just had your browser remember for you, like your credit card information for an easy checkout process, or your address or bank details, whatever. And it'll look for other cached information on your host, like, I don't know, your Discord account, Discord token, Steam token, Telegram info, whatever. Of course, it'll also pull out cookies that are saved and kept track of by your browser as you log into websites. And on top of that, it'll even look for other information like your username on your computer's name, host name, IP address, the amount of RAM that you have, your operating system, maybe even your screen size. So let me show you an example of some of those logs from InfoStealer malware. And let me say, this is fake data. It's anonymized, and with that, we can go ahead and show it. But if I extract all this out and then open it up in a text editor, take a look. If I expand out that folder for the Stealer log, you can see passwords.txt. And I'll zoom in a little bit here. Again, this is all fake data, and this is all coming from the Redline variant of InfoStealer malware. Redline InfoStealer used to be everywhere. It was super duper common, and hey, here is a list of passwords you can see for each different website or URL, a Disney Plus in there, the browser that they might have used to associate with that, and you can see installed software, you can see installed browsers that it might be using, important autofills that have been filled out here and there, domain detects, and if you wanted to drill down into sections for specifically Discord or cookies as we've seen previously, and look, this is that exact Netscape format that we saw just a moment ago. Can also see autofills and more that we want to explore. Oh, an Amex card in there, address, whoops. But I really want to draw your attention to the user information.txt because as I mentioned, this is some of the other information like the IP address or geolocation that this person is actually coming from genuinely as they use their computer. You can see their time zone, you can see their screen resolution as I mentioned, and all the stuff that might be handy for a threat actor or a hacker to now impersonate their genuine real account. Because if they wanted to now log into a website, if that website were smart and say, oh, you're coming from a different location or you're using a device that you aren't normally using, well, look, let's use all the puzzle pieces, breadcrumbs, and clues here from this InfoStealer malware log to be able to match as much as possible for their usual authentication. All right, let's get to it. I'll stop yapping. Let's go ahead and hack my Reddit account. So I will hop back over to my terminal, and I acknowledge this is a demo and showcase for our learning and education, but I do want to have some semblance of realism here, so I will keep working from the attacker's perspective with my hacker hat on, and I'll actually use the hoax shell utility to generate a nice and easy payload to be able to get a reverse shell or connect and remote control the victim Windows computer. So in a virtual environment, let me run hoax shell with my IP address so that it will be able to put together a PowerShell payload that we can just stage and prepare for the victim to actually execute. It'll use this base64 encoded command to get a callback. Now I want to make this nice and easy, but still somewhat legitimate. So let me go ahead and serve up this payload. I'll actually put an index file that I could go ahead and serve with Python with a simple HTTP server, and I can use a tool like ngrok to actually host this and publish it out on the open internet so we can stage an initial access payload. Now, I will hand wave over the payload delivery to the victim, say that they fell for a phishing email, or we paid for some fake advertisements or sponsored top results in Google with malvertising to ultimately scheme up what would be a little pretense to say, oh, your printer needs some new driver or security update, and they'll click on that file. Again, to make this somewhat realistic, I will use an LNK file or a Windows shortcut that'll actually stage a PowerShell downloader or a download cradle. We can try to fake it to actually have it look like it's going to open up the printer settings for, hey, working or troubleshooting with your printer, follow along with the pretense, but actually invoke a web request to our ngrok URL and download everything, and then pipe it to IEX or invoke expression so that we'll actually execute our payload there. We can call this HP Smart Driver Update. That's probably fine. Maybe if we wanted to decorate this, editing the properties, we can change this to actually have a pretty printer icon here. Here's one that works just fine from Shell 32, and we can actually set this to minimized. So if our user were to have this downloaded from whatever, some way, somehow, I'll put our victim on one side of the screen and our hacker on the other, so we should, fingers crossed, see the callback and reverse shell come through. Let me note I do need to make a couple changes that should say printers with an S for the actual payload. I do want to actually move my index file to an index.html. I believe that will be the first thing that is rendered when they access this HTTP server. Now, our victim, had they click on this little stager here, it should open up the printers, actually go ahead and download the payload, execute it, and give us a shell for us to be able to actually interact with this host. We could say, who am I? And we see that I am John on that host. I have compromised myself and now have initial access as that low privilege user. At this point, we can run InfoStealer malware and see what juicy information is there and what online accounts we can take over with session hijacking. So now that we're controlling our Windows victim computer from the hacker machine, let me move into a directory where we could actually work. I like C Windows tasks. And now I actually want to stage and prepare a little bit more PowerShell code for actually our InfoStealer malware that I'll just use as a PowerShell script, truth be told. I have crafted a cutesy little PowerShell-based InfoStealer that is just going to be scraping Firefox cookies in the Netscape format. So we're not going to get all the juicy details that we would in like the Redline Stealer example from our previous user information and that fake data set that we saw just a moment ago, but this will give us enough to steal my Reddit account. So I will save this file, and now that that is available, we could actually use ngrok once again to download and run this. So there is nothing in this directory right now. I can see ls and dir, there's no contents here. But if I were to, again, invoke web request for that alias IWR with our ngrok location and then our InfoStealer malware.ps1, piping it to IEX, it will execute all the PowerShell code for that InfoStealer malware. It looks like it displayed the cookies have been exported to the Netscape format in Firefox cookies.txt. Let's see if that exists in our current directory, and it does. Let me display that out and see if we have tracked down all the information for our Reddit account. Looks like we sure have, even the Unix timestamp. So let me copy all this out and grab everything pertinent to reddit.com. All right, I believe I've copied all of the cookies for Reddit with our InfoStealer malware. And now let's try from the attacker to log in as our LeetHaxer1337 user on Reddit. Now, I want to do this in a little bit of a special way that I haven't actually been able to showcase in other videos before, so I'm a little excited about this. I think it's kind of neat and pretty cool. We're going to use an anti-detect browser. These are browsers that really allow you to configure each and every aspect of, hey, your computer settings and configurations to whatever you would like before you go browse a page and have cookies imported already for you. You can set up different profiles and have it all isolated in some cool little environment. And these are legitimate tools. GoLogin is one example of them, and there are others, but these are things that threat actors actually abuse to be able to do this session hijacking work. So let me download Go Login on our Kali Linux virtual machine. That ends up downloading a tar archive that we can go ahead and extract. And with that, we should be able to run the Go Login program. You may very well need to create an account, but hey, putting on your hacker hat, maybe we could just go to something like minuteinbox.com and get a totally disposable 10-minute email that we could use to sign up and create a new account. That should give us a trial, and we could cruise through whatever silly stuff to actually get work in here. And here's the really cool thing. We can go ahead and create a profile that we could do for whatever we want. Maybe name it anything, Reddit hack for our learning. We could set up a proxy, maybe choose one that Go Login might provide, supply one of our own, or work without. We could actually customize the time zone and configure this to really be what we saw in the Stealer log output, given it being an actual Stealer log, just like the user information.txt we saw from the Redline example. So let me look for Eastern time zone. We could add whatever browser extensions we might like, set up any bookmarks that we might like, other configurations like geolocation. Again, we could actually determine a latitude and longitude or specific places. The advanced section also lets you determine a user agent, the screen resolution that of course you saw we could use from the puzzle pieces of the log entries, and modify the platform, CPU, RAM, all that information that would be pulled from Stealer logs. But the biggest one we're interested in is this cookies section, where if we were to import cookies in either that JSON or Netscape format, maybe I could just very well paste in everything that we saw from reddit.com from our info stealer malware running. Let me click import, and with that, let's create the profile and see if we can successfully log into Reddit, at least without even logging in. Let me click run for our Reddit hack profile. We can click view, and now that has opened up this browser where I might go to reddit.com, and fingers crossed, we are already at Programmer Humor. We are logged in as LeetHaxer1337 without passwords, without multi-factor authentication, strictly from the stolen cookies. Now, let me talk about why session hijacking is a difficult cybersecurity problem. Because this activity, this threat is hard to detect because the threat actor will bypass multi-factor authentication, might not even need to know the password, and really, at that point, hey, they could just very well try to match the usual device or geolocation or time zone that the user would actually be coming from because of the information obtained from InfoStealer malware and their logs. There are some session management best practices that different websites could follow, but they don't always, like, session timeout or invalidating some cookies after specific key actions, requiring a multi-factor authentication prompt. But there are some opportunities to still defend against this. If you, your company, your business, your organization, had the threat intelligence and you were tracking like leaked cookies, leaked sessions, or leaked information from InfoStealer malware logs, you could proactively invalidate cookies that have not yet expired and then thwart the session hijacking attempts. So if I may, I'd really love to tell you about an incredible tool that offers a solution and can help with this, all thanks to Flare. And a special thanks to Flare for sponsoring this video. Oh, and by the way, Flare just announced their successful Series B raise of $30 million, which is friggin' awesome. Like, congratulations. So check this out. If you want to follow along, link below in the video description, but take a look at the very top here. Flare addresses threat of stolen session cookies with launch of account and session takeover prevention. Check it out. Super cool new feature set that is proactively looking for those session cookies, the stolen session cookies from InfoStealer malware logs, tied and tracked to you, your organization, your business, your company, and being able to offer you the ability to then invalidate them and make sure those cookies aren't actually leveraged for session hijacking. And you've got some sweet insight from Jason Haddix and just awesome other incredible sweet stuff to really sing the praises here. But look, I want to help drill down into this and showcase it just a little bit. So we have some opportunity to stop and prevent a full account takeover like we just did in a couple minutes, as easy as it was to steal my Reddit account. So now I am logged into Flare, and they have a very slick new dashboard, by the way, but I don't think I'm going to spend a whole lot of time in here. Truth be told, I'd like to go take a look at their API documentation. You can see the docs that are linked, and there's a whole lot you could drill down into, but I really want to go to their API because being able to programmatically access all this data is kind of phenomenal. Like the fact that it has a Python and Golang based SDK is like phenomenal for research, not gonna lie. Anyway, forgive me, I want to showcase this cool capability that comes with the new feature, monitor leaked cookies for your domain. You can straight up search for cookies that match your domain in Stealer logs, and then you can actually identify and invalidate those sessions before they're taken over and used via session hijacking or account takeover. If you scroll down a bit, they tell you exactly how to do this, and they even offer a code example on GitHub and an end-to-end API example in Python. So very, very slick and easy to get up in action. So let me see if I can play with this. I'll create a directory for me to work in, and I actually will define it as a little poetry package so that we can cruise through using some Python and actually getting those dependencies up and at them. We can skip a lot of this for the moment. We can just let it go and then see, can I add Flare.io to get that in action? Yeah, cool, perfect. Let me be sure to actually get into that poetry environment, and I'll make just a simple test script where we could use their example to validate and see if we are connected A-OK. I've just prepared the API key as an environment variable, so let me see if I can work with the test script and validate. Yep, we are connected, looking good. So now my next question is, can we get to this monitor leaked cookies for our domain capability and just kind of roll through the example where they are querying for the Scatterholt domain and trying to see if there have been any leaked cookies. Actually, their documentation will tell us a little bit more. Oh, and we can even just play with it in here. They showcase all the different parameters we could provide, domain being everything that we've seen. I think especially that the expires after option is pretty awesome because then you could just genuinely be looking for still active cookies that need to be invalidated or terminated. Oh, and they have a response example. At the very least, you still have all the insight for whatever website or whatever session, expired or not, may very well have some anomalous activity that you can go review. And if it's necessary, go disable the account, reset it, or whatever damage control is needed. With this API endpoint and with totally flexible code, however you want it to be, adding in whatever other integrations and other workflows that you might like, you've got the visibility and the threat intelligence. But hey, holy crap, that was a long one, but my goodness, I hope you had a lot of fun because look, that is how session hijacking can just as easily be done. That's how account takeover can really be a problem when even if you have a complex, strong, secure password and two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, all the other layers of Swiss cheese to try to add up defense in depth, protecting your accounts. There are still tricks that hackers can do in that game of security cat and mouse. That's the threat from info stealer malware and stealer logs, but hopefully one opportunity to better defend against them. It's a matter of having the visibility and the threat intelligence. With that said, huge thanks to Flare for sponsoring this video. Really, genuinely, seriously, I think their stuff is just so stinking cool. I hope you go take a look. Link in the video description. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please do all those YouTube algorithm things, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.